Princess Viora stood before the towering mirror inside her ceremonial chamber, her reflection glimmering beneath layers of woven lumisilk, a fabric that shimmered like flowing starlight. Today was not a day of celebration, not for her. It was a move on a political chessboard crafted by people far older and far colder than she was. The Zathrani Empire demanded stability, demanded alliances, demanded sacrifices. And Viora, the Emperor's third daughter, had always known she would one day be offered for sake of diplomacy rather than love. Yet, knowing did not make this moment easier. Her dress, a stunning cascade of pale silver and radiant white, flowed to the marble floor like liquid frost. Attendants had braided her hair with crystalline threads that caught the light. She looked every bit the royal icon her empire needed, composed, graceful, strategic. But under that perfection beat a conflicted heart. She would marry a human, a species most of the galaxies still mocked as primitive, small, fragile, recent on the cosmic timeline. But they held something that larger empires coveted: influence over a resource-rich star region and a growing network of alliances that formed faster than anyone predicted. Earth wasn't powerful, but it was rising, and rising species always shifted galactic balance. Her father, Emperor Matt Heron, had explained the decision in his usual calculating calm. The humans desired acceptance from the greater galactic community, and the Zathrani desired access to minerals found only in their region. A marriage alliance was efficient, clean, and politically favorable. "Your union will seal a future without war," he had told her, "and you, my daughter, will secure our legacy." Viora had bowed then, but she did not feel secure now. Harmony Prime, an enormous diplomatic station floating between empires, was swarmed with delegates from 17 civilizations. The vast ceremonial hall buzzed with smells, colors, textures, and sounds no single species could comfortably describe. Viora walked through the aisle with unbroken poise, ignoring the murmurs, the glances, the whispered insults. Her soon-to-be husband waited ahead. Daniel Cole, human, quiet, ordinary. He wore a simple black suit that looked almost laughably underwhelming among the extravagant garments surrounding him. His hair was dark, but streaked with gray at the temples. His eyes, a soft, warm brown, held steady on her as she approached. He smiled, not a diplomatic smile, not a forced or trained one, but a genuine, sincere, almost gentle smile. Viora faltered, not in her steps, but in her certainty. He was different. The ceremony itself was brief. The Galactic Council had crafted a neutral ritual specifically so no species customs held dominance. This meant nobody liked it, but nobody protested either. Papers were signed, words were spoken, and in minutes, Viora became wife to a man she did not know, an alien whose species many still believed belonged in the lower rungs of civilization. But the reception afterward? That was the true battlefield. Diplomats swarmed like predators, sensing fresh blood. They sought influence, leverage, advantage. Viora maneuvered through them expertly, trained since childhood to smile without sincerity and answer without revealing anything useful. Daniel, on the other hand, stayed surprisingly quiet. He answered questions politely. He did not boast about humanity or attempt to charm the room. He simply existed, calm, patient, unfazed. That, more than anything, confused her. Then the Carity ambassador arrived, Drexen, a mountain of bone-plated muscle, towering over both of them. His voice rumbled like grinding stone. "So this is a human," he sneered. "I expected something more." Daniel bowed his head slightly. "My apologies." Drexen laughed, a harsh, rattling sound. "Your species is young, weak, insignificant. When my ancestors built star fortresses, yours were still struggling with fire." Viora opened her mouth, ready to deliver a razor-sharp diplomatic rebuke. Daniel simply nodded. "You may be right." Drexen blinked, caught entirely off guard by the lack of defense. He scowled and stomped away, muttering in frustration. Viora stared at Daniel. "You didn't defend yourself." "There was nothing to defend," he said gently. Arguing with him would only validate the insult. She didn't know what to make of that. The next morning, they departed Harmony Prime aboard the Meridian, a Zathrani diplomatic vessel modified for human comfort. It was a place of polished silver corridors, soft blue lighting, and sweeping windows that framed the endless stars. Daniel adapted quickly. Too quickly. He claimed a small section of the ship and transformed it into something she'd never seen aboard a vessel, an earth garden. Soil, seeds, flowers of bold and unfamiliar colors. A single small tree he called an apple tree. He cared for it daily, watering, trimming, whispering to the leaves. "Why do you do this?" Viora asked. "It reminds me of home," he said softly, "and it helps me think." "What do you think about?" He paused. "The future, the past, and the type of galaxy I hope we can create." Strange answer. Too large, too intentional. Viora stored that thought away, and she watched him closer. Daniel read ancient books, trained with soldier-like discipline, spoke at night through encrypted channels. He deflected questions about his past. He avoided mentioning family. And when alone, his eyes changed. One night, she found him in the observation deck, still as stone, watching the stars with a patience so intense it chilled her. Not the patience of a gentle man, the patience of a predator. In that moment, Viora realized one terrifying truth. She had no idea who she had married, but she would find out. She had to. 3 months aboard the Meridian had blurred into a slow, uneasy rhythm. Princess Viora and Daniel Cole lived together as husband and wife in the diplomatic sense, but not in any way that resembled closeness or warmth. They were partners in public, strangers in private, orbiting each other like two planets caught in the same star's gravity but never touching. Every morning, they shared breakfast, Viora with her nutrient-rich Zathrani dish, Daniel with simple human foods he prepared himself. He brewed something called coffee. It smelled sharp and earthy. Every day, she watched him cradle the steaming cup with strange reverence, as though the warmth settled something deep inside him. She wanted to ask why. She never did. Still, she observed him. She had promised herself that. Daniel moved through the ship unlike any diplomat she had known. He always chose seats with clear visibility of exits. He noticed footfalls down the corridor long before they arrived. He paused mid-sentence whenever he sensed something approaching. A crew member, a technician, even a distant service drone. He was too aware, too trained, too dangerous. Sometimes Viora wondered whether the humans had deceived not just the galaxy, but her as well. Yet the quiet moments, the garden moments, complicated everything. Each day, Daniel spent hours tending to the plants he had brought from Earth. The apple tree's leaves shimmered under the artificial light. Its roots nested in soil that carried the scent of rain. The garden became a sanctuary, a place of growth in a galaxy built on power and secrets. "What drives you to keep this alive?" Viora asked him once. Daniel brushed soil from his hands and studied a small blue flower. "Because everything else I built," he said softly, "exists in shadows. This is the one thing I can nurture openly." Viora didn't know if she admired that answer or feared it, a disturbance in the stars. The Meridian traveled through neutral space en route to a trade summit. Viora reviewed political briefs each morning. Daniel read ancient Earth literature and sent encrypted nightly transmissions to his mysterious contacts. The crew grew accustomed to their unusual routines. Then everything changed in an instant. The attack came without warning. Viora was in the council chamber reviewing data when emergency alarms blared, sharp, piercing, unmistakable. The soft blue lights of the Meridian shifted to harsh red. The floor vibrated with a power surge that accompanied defensive shielding. She sprinted to the corridor, robes trailing behind her, and burst onto the bridge. Captain Sailor was pale, trembling as his crew scrambled at the controls. "We are surrounded," he whispered. Viora turned to the starfield and froze. 50 Carati warships materialized from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Colossal, bone-plated vessels, bristling with weaponry powerful enough to tear the Meridian to shreds. "This is Admiral Drexen of the Carati Third Fleet." A growling voice boomed across the comms. "Lower your shields. Prepare for boarding. We will investigate the human." The human, not the ship, not the diplomatic mission. "Daniel." "Princess," Captain Sailor whispered. "We cannot fight them. Our weapons won't scratch their hulls. We will be annihilated." Viora's mind raced. The Carity had never forgiven humanity for refusing to submit to their demands. Drexen, especially, despised humans. Arguments flashed through her mind, diplomatic angles, negotiation attempts, possible compromises. None would work. Not with Drexen. A flicker of movement reached the edge of her vision. Daniel had stepped onto the bridge. No fear, no shock, nothing. Just calm, quiet, controlled. Admiral Drexen. Daniel said as though greeting an old acquaintance. This is unexpected. Your species has overstepped. Drexen snarled. You will acknowledge your inferiority. Surrender your claims in the outer reaches, and hand over human mining territory. Refuse, and I melt your vessel. Captain Sailor flinched. The crew held their breath. Daniel didn't. These are significant demands, he said evenly. They are not demands, they are facts. You have 1 hour human. The transmission cut. A message of numbers. Viora turned to Daniel. What are you going to do? Daniel didn't answer. He simply walked to the communications console. No panic. No rush. No hesitation. He typed a sequence of numbers. No words, no symbols, no encryption markers the ship recognized. He sent the message, then folded his hands behind his back. We wait. For what? Viora demanded. Daniel's eyes drifted to the stars. For my friends. Time slowed. The 1 hour deadline felt like an eternity. Drexen sent more threats. The crew whispered final messages to loved ones. Viora reviewed escape route calculations. None viable. Daniel stood still, watching, waiting. Then, at exactly 53 minutes, every sensor on the Meridian screamed. The Carity ships flickered. Gravity waves surged in impossible patterns. One by one, the warships vanished. Not destroyed. Not cloaked. Gone. As if plucked from existence. Captain Sailor stared at his displays. This can't be. There is no technology that can... Daniel cut in quietly. There is... Viora felt her blood freeze. What was he? Who was he? Hours later, a lone escape pod was recovered. Inside was Drexen, once the terror of 1,000 battlefields, now reduced to a trembling shell repeating the same broken phrase. Shadows between the stars, shadows. Viora's breath shook. There were stories, legends whispered in fearful circles, about beings who moved unseen, eliminating threats before they ever reached the light. Ghosts, myths, nightmare warnings. She stared at her husband, Daniel Cole, a quiet man, a patient man, a gardener, and possibly the most dangerous being in the galaxy. Viora's suspicion hardened into truth. She would uncover everything, because the galaxy had just changed, and the man at the center of it slept in the room beside hers. The Meridian drifted through calm space once more, but the memory of the vanished Carity fleet clung to every corridor like a shadow no amount of artificial sunlight could wash away. Crew members spoke in hushed whispers, eyes drifting toward a human diplomat who had somehow, impossibly, neutralized an entire armada without raising a weapon. Daniel Cole moved through the ship unchanged, calm, slow steps, quiet breathing, gentle hands tending to his garden as though nothing unusual had happened. But to Viora, he no longer appeared ordinary. He had become an enigma wrapped in 1,000 veils. She needed answers. For days, she watched more closely, noticing things she had missed before. Daniel always positioned himself with strategic precision. He was never startled, never confused, never overwhelmed. Every gesture, every movement carried a deliberateness she had mistaken for humility. Humility, she now realized, had nothing to do with it. Daniel was waiting. For what? She didn't know. Searching the shadows. Viora began her investigation quietly. She had diplomatic access to Zathrani archives, council databases, and old classified war records. The deeper she dug, the more she found. Cryptic fragments of history, whispers scattered across centuries. Some mentioned silent interventions during major wars. Others referenced phantom operatives dismantling empires without leaving evidence. Files redacted so thoroughly even their titles were censored. One name kept appearing in footnotes, whispers, and warnings. The quiet ones. According to legend, They were not an empire, not a species, not even an organization. They were myth. But myths, Viora knew, had roots. One report described the fall of the Morvathi dynasty 2 centuries ago, blamed on internal corruption. Yet hidden annotations suggested an unseen force had manipulated the collapse. Another document detailed the end of the Syndicate Wars, officially a truce negotiated over months. But the report's margin suggested something else. The Syndicate leaders had all changed course abruptly, as if motivated by fear. Fear of something unseen. Fear of shadows between the stars. Viora's stomach tightened. Drexen's final words echoed in her mind. Shadows between the stars. An unsettling realization. Her sleep suffered. Her appetite dwindled. Daniel noticed her fatigue, but she lied, pretending to be busy with diplomatic work. She could not confront him yet. Not until she understood. Then one night, unable to rest, Viora walked into the ship's observation deck. Daniel sat alone, his silhouette outlined against the starfield. No garden tools, no books, no datapads, just stillness. His eyes were cold. Not cruel, not angry, but ancient. She had seen many warriors stare into the void. None looked like that. That was the gaze of someone who watched centuries pass like passing storms. A chill crawled up her spine. Before she could retreat, Daniel spoke. "You should sleep." His tone was soft, but beneath it lay layers she couldn't decipher. "I couldn't," Viora replied, stepping closer. Too many thoughts. Daniel tilted his head. "About what?" She hesitated. "About everything." He studied her face, as if reading truth she wasn't saying. "Curiosity is natural," he said, "but be careful what you seek. Some knowledge brings comfort, some brings burden." Viora swallowed hard. "And which kind is yours?" Daniel didn't answer. He didn't need to. The answer was obvious. Whatever he was, whoever he was, the truth would be a burden. Digging deeper. The next morning, Viora pushed further into forbidden archives, accessing ancient Zathrani intelligence logs. Most were mundane, but deep in the classified recesses, she found something extraordinary. A single fragment of a centuries-old report from a Morvathi War Council. The quiet ones do not age. They do not tire. They come from a world of water and green things, a small blue world in an insignificant system. A small blue world. Water and green things. Earth. The datapad slipped from her hands. Daniel was one of them. Not a diplomat. Not a symbolic husband. Not a quiet gardener. But a ghost. A legend. A being who had lived far longer than any human was supposed to. Her heart pounded, breath shaky. She replayed every memory, every smile, every pause, every encrypted message. It all made sense. Too much sense. Viora pressed her hands against the table, steadying herself. Fear wasn't the emotion building inside her. It was something more complex. Shock, betrayal, curiosity, awe, and dread. If Daniel was one of the quiet ones, if they truly existed, then the galaxy's history was a lie crafted carefully over centuries, and she was married to the architect of that lie. A confrontation delayed. She returned to her quarters long after midnight. Daniel was already asleep, or pretending to be. His breathing was even, calm, peaceful. He looked so human like that, so ordinary. Viora stood in the doorway for a long moment. She could demand the truth. She could expose him. She could walk away. But she did none of those things. Instead, she whispered into quiet, tomorrow, because she needed one more night, one more breath, one more moment before she stepped into the shadows where her husband truly lived. 3 days passed in a haze of silent tension. Viora moved to the meridian with the poise expected of a princess. But beneath that calm exterior, storms brewed. Every time Daniel smiled softly or tended his garden or reached for a book, she wondered what expression lay behind the mask he wore, because now she knew it was a mask. And tonight, she would rip it away. Her investigation had revealed too much to ignore. The quiet ones, myths whispered in fear, aligned perfectly with the impossible things Daniel had done. The vanished fleet, the coded transmissions, the ageless patience, the unnatural calm. Every clue pointed not to coincidence, but to a truth far older than humanity's official history. But she needed to confirm it. Tonight, she would confront him. A garden of answers. The artificial evening cycle dimmed the corridors. The meridian was quiet, most crew asleep, the hum of engines soft and steady. It was a perfect time for honesty or for danger. Viora found Daniel in his garden, kneeling beside the apple tree, removing a few wilted leaves with gentle precision. The glow from the biolamps washed over him in warm tones, making him appear deceptively peaceful. "Daniel," she said, voice steady, "we need to talk." He paused, not in fear, but in acknowledgement. He placed the leaves aside, wiped soil from his fingers, and stood to face her. "Of course," he said. "You've been restless lately." Viora inhaled slowly. "I know what you are." Daniel's gaze held hers, calm, unreadable. "And what do you believe I am?" "One of them," she said. "One of the quiet ones." A long silence followed. Then Daniel exhaled. "Sit, Viora." He gestured to a bench beneath the apple tree. She hesitated only a moment before taking the seat. He joined her, but not too close. "Not yet." "What did you find?" he asked quietly. "The Morvathi archives," she answered. "The records of interventions across centuries. Whispers of force that dismantled empires without being seen. Files describing beings who didn't age, didn't die, who came from a world of water and forests. And you connected the rest." "I did." Daniel looked at the leaves rustling lightly under the artificial breeze. "How much do you know?" "Enough to know that humanity lied," Viora said. "Your species didn't discover faster than light travel 50 years ago. You've been here for centuries, hidden within the cracks of our history, manipulating events, eliminating threats, shaping the galaxy." His silence was confirmation. Viora's pulse raced. "You married me not for diplomacy, but to place yourself in the center of Zithrani politics." Daniel nodded slowly. "Partly true." "Then tell me the whole truth." The fall of innocence. Daniel's eyes shifted, not colder, but older, a weary kind of ancient. He clasped his hands in front of him. "Humanity discovered faster than light travel over 4 centuries ago. We reached the stars hopeful, naive, eager to meet new civilizations." His voice deepened. "What we found instead were slavers." Viora's breath caught. Even knowing parts of the story couldn't prepare her for the rawness in his tone. "The Morvathi took our first colony ships. Our people became property. Toys. Lab subjects." His jaw tightened. "For 100 years, humans were bought and sold like livestock. The Caridi hunted us in their arenas. The Syndicate used us to test biochemical weapons. Other empires looked away or participated." Viora closed her eyes. Shame coiled in her chest. She couldn't defend her galaxy. Not against this. "But humans survived," Daniel continued. "We survived because that is what we do. Even as slaves, we built networks, shared secrets, passed plans through whispers and scratch symbols. We formed the foundation, the early quiet ones. And you freed yourselves," Viora whispered. "Not with war," Daniel said. "War would have ended us. Instead, we made ourselves indispensable. We slipped into shadows, learned systems, influenced powerful leaders, quietly, patiently." He turned toward her fully. "We toppled the Morvathi dynasty. We manipulated the Syndicate collapse. We ended the Cariti blood tournaments. Piece by piece, we erased every species that tried to enslave us." Viora shivered. "And you never stopped." "We couldn't," Daniel said. "If the galaxy knew what we could do, they would unite to destroy us. Survival required silence." She swallowed hard. "And your marriage to me?" Daniel's expression softened. A fracture in the ancient mask. "That was my idea," he admitted. "Not the foundations." Viora blinked. "Why?" "Because the Zithrani never enslaved us," he said. "You were honorable even when others were monsters. We wanted peace with your people. Trust. A future built on cooperation, not manipulation." Her mind reeled. "But you lied to me," she said quietly. "I lied to everyone," Daniel replied. "But you deserve the truth. And I promised myself that one day I would give it to you. She stared at him, searching his face for any hint of deception. What do you want from me now? She asked. Daniel knelt before her, unexpected, startling. Your choice, he said. Expose me. Expose humanity. Expose the quiet ones. It will plunge the galaxy into chaos, possibly war, but the truth will be known. He lifted his gaze. Or, stand with me, help me guide the galaxy towards something better. Not domination, not secrecy forever, but a future where no species fears another. Viora's breath trembled. You're giving me this choice, she whispered. Even though I could destroy everything you built? Yes. Why? His voice lowered. Because I care for you, Viora. More deeply than I intended. More than I should. Her heart stuttered. He continued, voice barely a whisper. And because I am tired of shadows. Viora looked at him, truly looked at the quiet gardener, at the patient predator, at the ancient soul behind warm brown eyes. He was terrifying. He was vulnerable. He was offering trust. She inhaled shakily. I need time. Daniel nodded. Take as long as you need. Viora stood. She turned toward the door. But before leaving, she whispered, I don't hate you, Daniel. He closed his eyes. Relief, sorrow, hope blending in a way she couldn't understand. Viora walked into the corridor, heart pounding. She now held the power to change the fate of the galaxy, and the fate of the most dangerous man ever born. Viora did not sleep that night. She sat alone in the dim glow of her chamber, Daniel's confession echoing in her mind like a storm trapped inside a small room. The truth was too large, too heavy, too impossible, and yet every piece of evidence supported it. Daniel, her quiet, gentle, unreadable husband, was part of a centuries-old shadow empire that had shaped the galaxy more than any council, any dynasty, any army. And he had trusted her with that truth. By morning, Viora had made her decision. She would stand with him. Not because she trusted the quiet ones. Not because she approved of their methods. But because she believed in the galaxy Daniel wanted to build. A galaxy where no species would ever again treat another as livestock. She would be his partner. Or his greatest challenger. But she would not be his enemy. A choice made. 3 days later, Viora approached Daniel in the communication chamber. He was typing something into a secure console, the screen black except for shifting geometric patterns. Daniel, she said softly. He turned, alert but not afraid. I've made my decision. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Viora stepped closer. I will stand with you, but not as your pawn, as your equal. Daniel's shoulders relaxed with something that looked dangerously close to relief. Partners, he said. Partners, she repeated. It should have been a moment of triumph. Instead, chaos came first. The leak. The message arrived in the middle of the night, an urgent ping through diplomatic channels. Captain Sailor burst onto the deck pale as starlight. Princess. Daniel. There's been a breach. Classified information from Zethrani intelligence has been leaked. Someone pieced together fragments of the truth about humanity. Viora felt her stomach twist. Daniel went unnervingly still. What truth? Viora asked. That humans have hidden power, hidden agents, hidden influence. The captain swallowed. They don't know everything, but they know enough. The consequences were immediate. The Carity Empire demanded sanctions. The Syndicate Lords closed their borders. The Merchant Guild suspended all trade with Earth. And the Council declared an emergency. Viora's diplomatic console flashed with a message from her father, Emperor Madharan. Return at once. You are to stand trial for aiding human deception. The words hit her like a physical blow. A trial, Viora whispered. He thinks I betrayed the Empire. You should go, Daniel said quietly. Distance yourself from me. Claim ignorance. It's safer. Viora turned sharply. I am not abandoning you. Daniel exhaled. Then we face this together. Grand Tribunal Station. The station was a colossus, an artificial world built from layers of alloy, shield matrices, and rotating habitats. Its halls echoed with millions of footsteps. Entire empires had come to witness humanity's judgment. When Viora and Daniel entered the tribunal chamber, thousands of representatives stared down at them from tiered seats. Weapons were holstered but visible. Guards lined the walls. This was not a hearing. It was an execution disguised as diplomacy. At the center of the arena stood the accused platform, a circular dais lit by harsh white lights. Viora stepped onto it beside Daniel, her heart pounding. Her father was in the Zathrani section. She searched for his eyes. He didn't look at her. The chief arbiter, a towering ancient creature of shimmering translucent flesh, spoke. Daniel Cole of Earth, you are accused of concealing military supremacy, commanding forbidden shadow forces, and manipulating galactic stability. Do you deny these events? Daniel stepped forward. I deny wrongdoing, he said calmly. The chamber erupted. Shouts, threats, accusations. Viora, clench your fists. Daniel did not flinch. You admit the Quiet Ones exist, a syndicate lord hissed. You admit you direct them, a merchant guildmaster snarled. You admit you deceive us all, a Karate warrior roared. Daniel waited until silence fell again. I admit, he said, that humans have acted in secret to survive. I admit that we protected ourselves when no one else would. The galaxy enslaved us, hunted us, tortured us. We endured, we learned, we adapted, and we ensured humanity would never again be broken. Gasps rippled across the chamber. Daniel continued, voice steady as stone. If survival is a crime, then yes, humanity is guilty. Viora stepped forward. Allow me to speak. Her father did not object. The arbiter nodded. Viora faced the galaxy. You accuse humans of deception, she said, but you never ask why. The Karadi hunted them. The syndicate experimented on them. Dozens of empires enslaved them. She pointed boldly toward the delegation rings. And you expect them to trust you? After centuries of suffering, a wave of shocked murmurs spread. The real question is not why humans hid, Viora said. It is why the galaxy forced them to. The chamber fell silent, not peaceful silence. Tense, fractured, changing. The threat of war. The Karadi representative stood, plates rattling with wrath. Your species destroyed our third fleet. That act cannot go unanswered. Daniel's voice softened dangerously. That fleet attempted to coerce Earth into surrender. They threatened genocide. They were stopped. Stopped how? A delegate demanded. What weapon did you use? Daniel raised one hand. Instantly, every light flickered. Every console glitched. Every ship docked outside reported catastrophic targeting system failures. Delegates panicked. Guards grabbed their weapons, only to find them locked. Then, as fast as it began, everything returned to normal. The chamber froze. That, Daniel said, was not an attack. It was a warning. His voice remained terrifyingly calm. We do not want war, but if you bring war to our door, you will lose. A chill swept the room. Daniel lowered his hand. We offer peace, cooperation, a future built on protection, not domination. The galaxy can rise or fall. The choice is yours. A vote that shook the stars. The tribunal voted the next morning. It was chaotic. It was bitter. It was far from unanimous. But enough voices chose negotiation over war. The galaxy had stepped back from the edge. For now, Viora exhaled for the first time in days. Daniel stood beside her, not triumphant, not relieved, just tired. We bought time, he said quietly. And now? Viora asked. Daniel's gaze drifted toward the view of distant stars. Now the real work begins. The tribunal's decision sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Some empires were furious, others shaken, but a fragile thread of possibility had been woven. One Daniel and Viora would have to guard carefully. Negotiation had won over war, but the galaxy's fear of humanity still simmered beneath every diplomatic smile and every signed treaty. The moment Daniel stepped off the tribunal platform, Viora knew the worst wasn't over. It was only beginning. 8 months of turbulence. Negotiations began immediately. Meetings upon meetings, councils upon councils. Daniel and Viora traveled aboard the Meridian to dozens of worlds, each with its own wounds, suspicions, and ambitions. The galaxy didn't want peace. It wanted guarantees. It wanted explanations. It wanted to know how much power the Quiet Ones truly held. Daniel gave them as little truth as possible. Viora gave them hope. Together, somehow it worked, but not without hardship, broken trust. The Carati were the most difficult. Their warrior pride had been shattered by the disappearance of the Third Fleet. Their leadership viewed Daniel with equal parts hatred and trembling respect. When Daniel and Viora arrived at the Carati War Citadel, they were met not with welcome but with a hall lined with armored warriors, every weapon holstered, but hands resting on hilts. Daniel walked through calmly. Viora walked beside him, chin raised. Inside the Council of Blades chamber, the largest of the Carati warlords snarled, "Human, you shamed us." Daniel nodded respectfully. "Your fleet intended to annihilate a diplomatic vessel carrying my wife." I responded proportionally. "Proportionally?" the warlord thundered. Viora stepped forward. "Then tell us, warlord, if humans had not intervened, would you have shown restraint?" The warrior hesitated. The silence was damning. Daniel opened a file on the holodable. Images appeared, old archive footage retrieved from the Foundation. Carati hunts. Humans forced into arenas. Children running through metal corridors, while Carati soldiers placed bets. The council chamber fell into stunned stillness. "We are not here for revenge," Daniel said softly. "We are here for acknowledgement, and a promise this will never happen again." For the first time in Carati history, shame dipped their heads. The blades were lowered, profits over pride. The syndicate lords were easier. They cared only about one thing, profit. When Daniel opened projected economic models showing how cooperation with humans could double their cross-system revenue within a decade, their objections dissolved almost instantly. "Why did you lead with this?" one syndicate lord exclaimed. Daniel shrugged. "You wouldn't have listened." Viora tried not to smile. Father and daughter. The most painful negotiation was with Emperor Matt Heron. He agreed to a private meeting in the Imperial Garden, where Viora had taken her first steps as a child. The purple blossoms swayed softly under the glow of the planetary lamps. Matt Heron waited on an ornate stone bench, posture rigid, expression strained. Viora approached slowly. "Father, you shamed me before the galaxy," he said, voice sharp. "You defended a species that deceived us." Viora knelt before him. They survived. They were hunted. They had no choice but to hide. Matt Heron looked away. "And Daniel Cole? Do you trust him?" Viora hesitated. She thought of Daniel's quiet strength, his ancient eyes, his burdens, his belief in her. "Yes," she said finally. "I trust him." Matt Heron closed his eyes. Pain flickered across his face. "Your mother would have understood. She believed compassion was the highest form of strength. I have forgotten that at times." Viora placed her hand on his. "Help us build something better." Her father remained silent for a long time. Then he squeezed her hand. "I will consider it." 3 weeks later, the Zethrani Empire formally endorsed the Galactic Agreement. Viora cried when she read the announcement. Daniel simply said, "Good, one less enemy." But she saw the relief hidden beneath his calm. A new galaxy begins. The treaty signed 1 month later reshaped the stars themselves. Earth received a permanent seat on the Galactic Council. The Quiet Ones, no longer entirely hidden, shifted their operations. No more silent coups. No more manipulations in the dark. Instead, they cooperated with other powers openly when needed. From their remnants, a new organization was formed. The Watchers, a joint interstellar force dedicated to preventing atrocities across the galaxy. Not dominance, not secrecy, protection. Daniel refused leadership of it. He stepped down as director of the Foundation, his voice weary. "I've carried shadows too long." Viora knew the truth. He was tired, old in a way no human should be. He wanted peace. He wanted light. He wanted a life where he could grow an apple tree without planning the fall of an empire, a symbol of unity. The Meridian was refitted with a mixed crew of Zethrani and humans, its hull repainted in silver and deep blue, a symbol of alliance. Its mission was simple: travel the galaxy, prevent conflict, and build trust. Viora and Daniel traveled with it. They sat together on the observation deck many nights, watching new worlds pass beneath them like drifting gems. They were not just husband and wife. They were not just diplomats. They had become partners. Unequal still, in some ways, uncertain in others, but partners. And as the stars whispered past the glass, Viora realized something quietly profound. The galaxy was beginning to hope. And she and Daniel stood at the heart of that fragile hope, holding it together, piece by piece, light by light. Almost a year had passed since the tribunal. The galaxy was not healed, not even close, but the screams of war had softened into uneasy negotiations. Treaties were being honored, borders stabilized, merchants traded again. Patrols of the Watchers resolved small disputes before they birthed larger ones. It was progress, fragile, imperfect, trembling, but progress. Daniel and Viora, aboard the Meridian, had become symbols of that fragile peace. Delegates greeted them with cautious respect. Reporters followed their movements. Every system they visited measured their reactions, their tone, their unity. They had become the galaxy's unexpected compass. But the brighter the light grew, the more the shadows stirred beneath it. Echoes of a dark past. Viora noticed at first. A shift in Daniel. He moved slower some mornings, exhaustion pulling at the corners of his eyes. Sometimes he stared at the stars too long, as if expecting something or someone to emerge. His responses became shorter, sharper, not hostile, but weary. She found him in the garden one evening, sitting beneath the apple tree with a data pad dimmed in his lap. "You're thinking too much," Viora said softly. Daniel smiled faintly. "A bad habit." "You're not sleeping," she pressed. He hesitated. "I've lived a long time, Viora. Longer than any human should. Every decade takes its toll." Her heart tightened. "How long?" Daniel's gaze drifted to the tree's branches. "I stopped counting a while ago. 300 years, give or take." Viora inhaled sharply. She knew he was old, older than humans should be. But hearing it still shook her. "That's impossible," she whispered. "Many things are impossible until they aren't." Daniel stood slowly. "Come, there's something I need to show you." The Vault of Echoes. Daniel led her to a sealed chamber near the Meridian's core, one she had never seen before. The door opened with a scan of his hand and a whisper of ancient authorization codes. Inside, the lights flickered to life, illuminating walls lined with memory crystals and data shards. A private archive. Daniel's archive. "What is this?" Viora breathed. "History," Daniel said. "My history. Humanity's hidden one. The truth behind the shadows." He activated a crystal. A hologram appeared, grainy, old, filled with static. A human colony ship hovered in space, its hull scarred. Then Carity warships surrounded it. Then screaming. Then darkness. Another crystal. Human slaves in Morvathi labor pits. Another. Children, hunted in arenas. Viora's hands trembled as she pressed them to her lips. "Daniel, we built the quiet ones not out of ambition," he said quietly, "but desperation. We were prey. We had to become hunters." He walked to another shelf, lifting a crystal with shaking fingers. "This was our first victory." The projection showed a Morvathi warlord falling, slain by an unseen hand. Then a chain reaction, uprisings, revolts, collapses, nations toppling, a galaxy reshaped, all orchestrated by ghosts. Viora couldn't speak. The weight of centuries pressed against her chest. "How many things did you change?" she whispered. Daniel didn't lie. "Hundreds." Her breath hitched. "And how many lives were lost?" The question hung in the air. Daniel's expression softened, old sorrow carving deeper lines into his face. "Too many," he admitted, "and I carry all of them." Viora reached out, grasping his arm. "You don't carry them alone anymore." He blinked, as if surprised by the sincerity in her voice. "Viora?" But before he could speak further, the ship's alarms blared. An unexpected threat. Captain Sailor's voice rang through the intercom. Princess Viora, Director Cole, report to the bridge immediately. There's a situation. They rushed through the corridors. On the bridge, screens flickered with red alerts. Report, Daniel ordered. Captain Sailor swallowed hard. It's Earth. Viora's breath froze. Earth. They've fallen under attack. Daniel's eyes darkened. A storm gathered behind them. Who? He demanded. A calm officer turned, trembling, reading multiple fleets, syndicate vessels, rogue Carity clans, and unidentified mercenary factions. They formed an alliance. They're demanding Earth surrender all Quiet One's technology, or they'll raise the planet. Viora felt the blood drain from her face. The shadows had risen again. For centuries, humanity had hidden. Now, their enemies wanted to drag them into the light. Burning. Daniel's voice dropped into a chilling calm. How long until they reach Earth's orbit? 30 hours, Officer whispered. The bridge fell silent. Viora placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. What do we do? She asked. Daniel closed his eyes. When he opened them, she saw the truth. The gardener was gone. The diplomat was gone. The man she had married was still there. But the centuries-old guardian, the shadow-born tactician, had stepped forward. We go home, Daniel said. And we remind the galaxy, he whispered, why they learn to fear the Quiet Ones. The meridian surged through hyperspace at maximum velocity. The stars stretched into ribbons as the ship raced toward Earth, the birthplace of Quiet Ones, the world that had endured centuries of enslavement, suffering, and rebirth. Now, it faced its greatest threat yet. Viora stood beside Daniel on the bridge, her pulse hammering. Alarms pulsed through the chamber, but Daniel remained unervingly still, eyes focused, jaw firm, expression carved from calm determination. He looked like a man returning home, to save it or die with it. A galaxy united against one world. The tactical holo-display painted a terrifying picture. 3 separate armadas, syndicate, rogue Carity clans, and dozens of mercenary fleets approached Earth orbit in a tightening noose. Thousands of ships, dozens of super-dreadnoughts. Enough firepower to turn a planet into a memory. Viora's throat tightened. They'll destroy Earth. Daniel, the Council must intervene. Too slow, Daniel said. This attack was coordinated in secrecy. By the time the Council votes, Earth will be ash. Captain Sailor looked between them, voice trembling. Then how do we stop them? Daniel placed a hand on the console. By ending the shadows, he whispered. Viora stared at him. What does that mean? He turned to her, eyes older than any human should be. I spent centuries hiding the Quiet Ones, hiding what we built, hiding what we can do. He gestured toward the approaching threat. They think we will hide again. Daniel's voice dropped into something cold. They are wrong. Revelation of the Quiet Ones. The meridian dropped out of hyperspace near Earth, straight into a nightmare. The planet was surrounded by a ring of hostile warships. Earth's tiny defense fleet, brave but hopelessly outmatched, held formation like a final prayer. The moment the meridian appeared, dozens of ships aimed their weapons. Incoming transmission. A syndicate commander materialized on the holoscreen, his face twisted in smug hate. Daniel Cole, he sneered. You should not have come. Earth will surrender the Quiet One's secrets, or we will wipe your species clean from the stars. Viora stepped forward. This is barbaric. Earth is a council-recognized civilization. Silence, princess, the syndicate leader spat. This does not concern you. Daniel's expression didn't shift. Are you sure? He asked quietly. The commander scoffed. What can you do, human? You stand alone. Daniel closed his eyes. Not alone. He lifted his hand. He whispered a single code. The lights across the meridian dimmed. The stars themselves seemed to tremble. And then, space tore open. The arrival. Black silhouettes emerged. Not ships, not in the traditional sense. They were sleek, silent, matte constructs that bent light around them. Their presence rippled the void itself. Dozens, hundreds. The Quiet Ones had arrived. For centuries they had hidden between empires. Now, for the first time, they stepped into the open. The hostile fleets panicked instantly. Unidentified vessels closing fast. How many? Too many. Targeting systems failing. Shields collapsing. The quiet ones move like shadows come alive. No lights, no engine flares. Only fluid motion and impossible silence. Within seconds, the enemy's formations collapsed. Weapons shut down. Warships lost propulsion. Dreadnoughts drifted helplessly as if plucked clean of power. They weren't destroyed. They were neutralized. Viora's breath shook. You could have done this any time. Daniel nodded slowly. But shadows are only powerful as long as they stay hidden. Then why reveal them now? She whispered. Daniel looked at Earth below, blue, fragile, beautiful. Because some things are worth stepping into the light for. The last stand of the enemy. One rogue Karate warlord refused surrender. His ship, a massive bone-plated fortress, roared to life, somehow resisting the quiet one's dampening field. He appeared on the holoscreen, rage distorting his features. You dare threaten us with ghosts? I will burn your homeworld myself. His dreadnought charged a planet killer cannon. Viora gasped. Daniel, we don't have time. But Daniel didn't move. A quiet one ship drifted between Earth and the dreadnought. Smaller, slower. A mere speck compared to a massive weapon aimed at the planet. The Karate warlord laughed. Fool, you sacrificed one of your own. Daniel's voice was quiet. Watch. The cannon fired. A beam capable of vaporizing a continent surged forward. It struck the quiet one ship. There was no explosion. No shockwave. The beam simply folded. It bent around the ship like light around a black hole. The weapon's energy dissipated into harmless streams across the void. The Karate warlord stared in horror. What are they? Daniel stepped closer to the screen. Survivors, he said, and protectors. The warlord dropped to his knees. Moments later, every enemy ship broadcast surrender. A new dawn for Earth. The council arrived hours later. Too late to fight, but just in time to watch the aftermath. Daniel stood before them, Viora beside him. You all feared humanity, Daniel said calmly. You feared a threat we never intended to be. He gestured to the quiet one fleet. This is our legacy. Our shield, not a sword. Viora stepped forward. Earth will not rule the galaxy, she said. We seek unity, not dominance. Justice, not revenge. The council fell silent. Slowly, hesitantly, one by one, they lowered their weapons. The end of shadows. Weeks later, peace was officially declared. Earth joined the council as a leading power. The Watchers expanded into a multi-species alliance. The quiet ones dissolved into the background, but not into secrecy. They became guardians, not ghosts. And Daniel, finally, set down his burdens. The final scene. One quiet evening, Viora found him sitting beneath the apple tree in the Meridian's garden. The leaves rustled gently. A few apples ripened on the branches, small, red, perfect. She sat beside him. It's over, she whispered. Daniel smiled softly. No, it's beginning. She leaned against him. Do you regret revealing the quiet ones? He shook his head. Shadows kept us alive, but light will help us live. Viora took his hand. What now? Daniel gazed at the stars. Now we build a galaxy where no one needs shadows again. She rested her head on his shoulder. And for the first time in centuries, Daniel Cole, human, guardian, survivor, felt peace. The galaxy would remember the quiet ones, but it would remember something far greater. The day humanity stopped hiding and chose to lead. And at the center of that new dawn stood two figures, bound by alliance, by truth, and by a love forged between light and shadow. The gardener and the princess, the quiet man and the loud future. Together, they stepped forward into a galaxy finally ready to change.